The Bank of Canada rate went up by 0.25% last Wednesday. So in this video, we're going to talk about how that's going to affect the market here in Victoria. I'm also going to go over changes in values and properties in the last 12 months and where I see values heading. And then finally, there's one type of property that maybe you just don't want to buy right now. We're going to talk about that as well. Let's get into it. Hi everybody, I'm Kerry Davies, born and raised here in Victoria, BC, third generation. I've been selling real estate to nice people like you for 26 years. Question I get all the time is, how is the market? So let's talk about the real estate market here in Victoria. I got a few graphs for you. So I'm not going to try and bore you with too many facts and figures here, but these graphs kind of lay it out pretty good. In May, we had 1,642 active listings. That's more than we had last May when we had 1,371. Interestingly enough, we had more sales this month, 748 versus a year ago. So the real estate market is very much supply and demand, and it's just simple economics. But 1,642 listings is still very low. On the graphs on the right there, back in June 2012, we actually had 4,030. So let's try that again. 4,232 active listings. That's 2.5 times as many listings then as we have today. And the low point was December 2021 when we had 409 listings. That is really low. All right, let's talk about values next. All right, so I don't really think there's any doubt that houses, single family, are selling the best right now, and it's pretty common to see multiple offers on any house, and and when I say multiple offers, it's not like it's 10 or 12 like it was when things really peaked, but certainly 2 or 3 is not uncommon, and I've had that happen on a number of my listings. Regardless, if we look at prices are still down compared to a year ago. On houses, we're down 9.4%. And so prices, in the last month have gone up 0.6%. So they're kind of going back in the right direction. We're sort of clawing back at the losses that we had. Let's have a look at condos. Sorry, townhouses. Let's have a look at townhouses. Condos are coming. Townhouses down 10% year over year, about a 1% increase in the last month. You can see the average prices there. We've got those listed as well. All right, now let's have a look at condos. Benchmark price there for condos, we're down 8.3% compared to a year ago. Same thing as townhouses, a 1% increase. So generally speaking, the market kind of peaked June and July of last year, and depending on different locations and different areas, but prices, we lost about 14% in value. So from last May, the prices were still heading up, and I would say things have definitely peaked by the end of July and more like the end of June. Okay, the last fact I'm going to bore you with here is like, how long does it take to sell my property? So these are for all properties, and right now 35 days on market is typical, but that's better than it was in April. So the end of May, it was 35 days. The month before April, it was 42 days. But look at it a year ago, it was only 19 days. Now, for houses, you can probably take about 5 days off that. Like, houses only taking about 30 days to sell right now. And they always, like I said, seem to sell a little bit quicker than condos or townhouses. The other thing you got to factor in there, right? Because you think that usually in most offers, there is 7 to 10 days of due diligence, right? So really that time frame to sell is quite a bit quicker. I mean, it's not like they're getting an offer after 30 or 35 days. That offer is usually coming within the first couple of weeks. Okay, so where's the real estate market heading here in Victoria? Well, you know what? I think interest rates are going to have a big bearing on what happens here. The Bank of Canada rate going up by 0.25% last week. It's now 4.75. A year ago, it was 1.25. So there's been quite an increase there. Now, the Bank of Canada rate does not directly affect mortgage rates because they're based on the bond rate. But regardless, higher rates do translate to higher mortgage rates as well. But let's have a look at a reason why the Bank of Canada rate has been increasing. I've got a graph here. It's the Consumer Price Index, CPI. And if you look at it, kind of like, 2020 to 2021, hardly any inflation in there. And then in 2021, that's when it starts to take off. So of course the Bank of Canada, they want to keep inflation under control. I mean, look at it in 2022 in June, July, it's up to like 8%. So that's when they really started to increase the rates. And it started to have an effect because you see we were, well, it looks like right on 8% inflation. It got down not to quite 4, but now it spiked up. Well, I wouldn't call that a spike, but it's heading back up. So that's the reason why the rate went up by 0.25% again last week. So very strange times right now. The mortgage rates are up for sure. I did a little bit of searching around online. The lowest rate I could see for fixed term was 4.79%, and typically as high as 5.69. So quite a variety there, which leads me to believe there's quite a bit of competition right now for your mortgage business. So that's good. But the thing that's really odd right now is the fixed rates are actually lower than the variable rate, because typically the variable rate is the lower of the mortgage product. So that's odd, and a couple of the mortgage specialists I've talked to who've been around for a while said they've never quite seen anything like it, and it is all kind of hard to figure where it's going to go. In general, what I'm thinking is, and it's only common sense here, but depends. I kind of feel like the mortgage rates are not going to go much higher. I'm hoping that they got inflation under control and that was just a blip and we don't see any more increases in the Bank of Canada rate, but I'm only speculating. I think what we're going to see now, we're coming to the end of June. Usually the market slows down come July, August. Those are typically slow months in real estate, and it should pick up again after the long weekend. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with inflation and the Bank of Canada rate and mortgage rates over the next couple months. But generally speaking, the Victoria market is pretty resilient. Surprising, there's a lot of cash buyers. We have a lot of people retired here. I'm going to look at, I'll show you a graph a little bit in a few minutes here of where buyers come from. And there is a fair portion of buyers who actually come retire and move here, right? So, and they typically are buying with cash. And then you got people downsizing too. That's a good portion of the market, selling their house, buying a condo. So they're not really worried about interest rates. And we still have low inventory. So I think the market's still going to stay pretty good for a while, regardless of the Bank of Canada rate increasing last Wednesday. But if it keeps going up, that could really put a halt on things. So there's one type of property right now that you really want to think about before you buy and go in with your eyes wide open. And that's any type of property that's a short-term rental, that you're buying it for the purposes of short-term rental. So short-term rental is anything that can be rented under 30 days. There's just about any property can be rented for 30 or more days. And those are protected or covered by the residential tenancy branch. But anything below that, two things have to happen. If it's a condominium or a townhouse, you have to have bylaws that allow short-term rentals. And the second thing is you have to have zoning that allows that. And there's been a real crackdown on that by, like the city of Victoria in particular, that's where most of them are. And the provincial government has made noises about not being particularly happy with them either. So maybe one day they'll all come to an end. I don't know. But just be careful. If you're buying a property with the sole purpose of having it as an Airbnb or short-term rental, have a plan B, because what happens is you can't rent that out short-term. You're going to have to rent it month to month, or you're going to have to sell it. So make sure you got a plan B and just know what you're getting into. All right, fine. Let's have a look at where buyers come from, because there's always a misconception there that buyers come from all over the place. They really don't. Let's have a look at the graph I put together here. So the reality of it is 70% of buyers are just come from our local market, like Greater Victoria. almost 10%, well 9.6% come from the lower mainland. Let's try that again, from the lower mainland. And the rest come from other parts of BC. So about 90% of our buyers are just people in the province moving here, moving around, and people in Victoria just moving around. And now we do have a fair portion come from Alberta, 3.9. Quebec and Ontario gets lumped together, and that's 3.7. And then the rest is pretty small, 2%, just a little bit over 2% from the rest of Canada. But from outside of Canada, of course, there's no foreign ownership right now. But that's, I mean, what that really means is it could be a Canadian living in the United States or elsewhere and moving back here, but it's only 1% of buyers actually come from outside of our border. All right, folks, so that's it. That's a wrap. That's how I see the market for this month and where I see it going down the road. So if you like this video, please subscribe. I'd really appreciate that. If you've got any comments, anything you want to talk about, any questions you got, please leave them in the comments below. I will get back to you. Talk to you soon.